Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem video. This is a postmortem of my Blitz chess game number 160. I was black here. My opponent kicks off with d4, and I decided to play d5 this time. And he went with knight f3, not the most usual response. The typical response there is c4, but knight f3 is a very respectable move as well, and leads to very solid positions for white. It's sometimes a little frustrating to play against. I've tried different systems. If you look at the most popular lines, knight f6, followed by e6, and either c6 or c5 are your top choices here. I recently tried just mimicking my opponent's moves, and that seemed to work out pretty well in that one game at least, so that's something you could try. Just copy what white is doing for a while and see where he's going. But I mean, basically, if he sets up the pawn triangle, basically white is playing a defensive position like a semi-Slav. But what I played is g6, the fianchetto, and we pretty much get out of the opening book here. So let's just... actually, we transpose back into the opening book and I'm over to, so let's leave this up. You can see with the chess engine, it's just sort of a typical opening advantage for white. e3, knight f6, and now if he plays c4, we've transposed back into some kind of mainline opening. I guess after c4, I'd probably want to play c6, although it says c4, bishop g7. Okay, it's a type of Grunfeld, basically, that I've transposed into. Anyway, and after this, we're out of the opening book for good. So bishop g7 is a logical move here. So white's setup is solid, but not particularly aggressive, and basically black equalizes in this opening. So nothing to be afraid of here, although maybe just fear of kind of a dull game. But you'll see things liven up pretty soon. This move c5, I didn't bother defending it. A lot of times I'll follow up c5 with knight b, d7, so I can always take back. Right now he could just grab that pawn and try and hold on to it, and I'm just going to ignore it. And he chooses not to take it, and I guess the chess engine is not impressed with the idea of taking either. So I guess it's probably just not good to take that pawn. Now here, h4, well, the chess engine is not afraid of h4, h5, and that it doesn't do anything. I was mainly trying to debate between whether to stop it with h5 or to play h6 so I can follow up with g4. Now it is true, if he pushes to h5 immediately, I can take with a knight. But in the future, he can always sack the exchange to open up the g file, and at some point, that could be a very dangerous plan after the knight is out of the way. So I want to put a stop to it quickly. And then he follows up with the immediate knight to e5. Yeah, so he's obviously signaling his aggressive intents. This is sort of like a reverse stonewall. I was trying to pin his knight to stop this. So now I can no longer play... I could... No, I can't play my bishop out there anymore. And I can't really stop him from following up with f4 and just attacking along the f-file here. So this is a dangerous plan for white, and you have to be careful, even though the computer, as usual, is not afraid of hypothetical attacks, and it rates this as slightly better for black. Anyway, after the pawn move, I just did not want to leave this dangerous knight here, and it's interesting, the chess engine actually agrees with this decision. So taking the knight, and then I had figured out that I had a square for my knight on g4, which is sometimes not very stable, but the f-pawn is gone now. So there's no pawn to kick it. It's well supported by my bishop, and I can play a pawn to h5 or maybe even f5 to support it later. It always puts pressure on this e3 square, so he has to do something about that. Now, it's not a big problem to defend e3, but it's just a little annoyance factor. And at some point, the knight might jump into f2, if that square is ever left unguarded. But, you'll see what happens later in the game. So we just developed for a few moves, and this bishop... he left his b-pawn undefended there, and I could just take it. Okay. But that's a bit risky. There's still this attack brewing on the king side, and I didn't want my queen being distracted. So I play bishop f5, and I thought this was an interesting choice. It gives me a doubled pawn in an open, or at least half-open g-file, but the g-file is not open all the way. There's still this pawn in the way, and this pawn on f4, the doubled f-pawn, supports my knight. So I thought this was a decent trade-off for me, and I got rid of his dangerous attacking piece, leaving him with a bad bishop, basically. Although he should probably think about playing e5, e4 rather, maybe even as a pawn sacrifice since I've clamped down on e4. That should be something White is thinking about just to open up some more lines here. But for now, with my clamp on these light squares, it looks like his bishop is somewhat imprisoned there. So he develops his queen, and I defend with my queen. It's interesting that the chess engine wants to defend with a pawn. Now, certainly pawn e6 would be a more solid way of defending f4. But on the other hand, it would be less flexible. I would lose the ability to move my queen back and forth on this file. So I was prizing that flexibility here. So he castles, and now, yeah, right after castles, and for the next 4 moves, I have this idea of knight f2. Very simple idea, just forking those 2 guys. And why not? Yeah, I should definitely play that. Just totally overlooked it. Well, I was thinking about other things. It's kind of tunnel vision in chess is a dangerous thing. You should always stop every move and expand your horizons just for a bit to see what other things are on the board besides what you've just been thinking about. But instead, yeah, I was following through with my plan. I was going to take here and then attack on the king side, starting with rook a c8. That's what I saw that really attracted my attention, was this file here. So opening up that file and getting a rook on it. And you see the chess engine is not impressed with my plan and has now given the advantage back to White. So if we back up, well, of course, I had this chance to play knight f2. Yeah, so that was the way to play. And e takes d4. And here I have a chance to play knight f2 again. So, but when I forego it, now he could defend. He doesn't. He's not defending against that threat either. And I still have it. And eventually, here, I no longer have the threat. But by this time, my advanced pawns on the queen side here are making enough of a threat that actually I have managed to maintain an advantage anyway. So I push ahead with the pawns, opening up lines, or attempting to, towards his king. The engine thinks it's best to go ahead and take immediately on c3. I'm trying to set it up here with this queen b6 move, because now taking on c3, this pawn is pinned, and the bishop takes back, I can just take it. So he has to try something else. He tries a takes b4. Would have been better to play c takes b4, not opening up the a file. You'll see it's very dangerous to open up this file. And now if he takes back with the queen, my plan was just to move my pieces over to the a file. Yeah, rook a8 is the recommended move here. He plays queen b3, and rook c4 is an idea here. Okay. Could double on the c file and threaten to take again. But rook a8 is still a decent move. And queen takes d5 is just a mistake. This is interesting. So I left this pawn hanging. I wasn't even really aware that pawn was hanging, to be honest. So that was an oversight on my part. You should really be aware of what if you're sacrificing a pawn, you should do it on purpose. But it's a good sack anyway, because the threats on the a file are just too dangerous, and leaving his queen away from the situation is deadly. So there's an immediate win here with b takes c3. So let's explore this. B takes c3. I thought he would just take back with the bishop. And then knight e3. This is, yes, that's the way to do it, this fork. I noticed the knight e3 idea a little while later. Okay, so that's the best way to proceed. I played queen to a6, just going for threats along the a file. You see it's all still good for black. The attack is pretty much overwhelming here. And then this is another point I wanted to explore. There's actually a mate in 7 at this point, starting once again with knight e3. And so what happens if the bishop takes? Then we play b3, like in the game. Now this king is in a mating net. Okay, queen a5, that's just throwing a piece in the way. That really doesn't do anything. Queen takes a8, sacrificing the queen. Okay, well, let's do something. Queen takes a8, rook takes a8, now mate in 4. King c1, starting to run for it. I guess there's no defense along the a file. Queen takes c4 check. Aha, this is what I missed. Now the king can run to d2. Queen to c2 check. King runs back to e1, and rook a1 check. Okay, so that's a nice mate. The bishop can interpose, but then it's mate. So let's back up and take a look at this. So mate in 7, starting with knight e3. Okay, so knight e3, forking queen and rook. Bishop takes, then pawn to b3, threatening the mate on the back rank. And there's no way to stop the queen from coming in on the a file. So after an exchange on a1, we looked at queen takes a1, rook takes a1, or a8 rather. Then the king runs to the c file, and when that happens, the queen can take on c4. So let's see, if you don't play queen takes a8, let's see, knight e3, bishop takes, b3. Instead of queen, suppose you leave the queen here and don't move it, so it's holding onto the c pawn. Just start running with the king. Most natural move. Queen a1 check, king d2, queen takes b2 check. The knight guarding c2 is very important, so the king can't defend the b2 pawn. And where can the king run to? If the king runs to the back row, then we have rook to a1 is mating. And if the king comes up to d3, then queen c2 is mate. Another very pretty mate. Okay, so nice mating attack here. I noticed these mating ideas, and what I played after c4, instead of knight e3, I played the move b3. Mating, it's a mating threat, and now he has to play bishop to a5. It's the only move, but I guess that's the difference here, is that after knight e3 I distracted the bishop. So bishop a5 is a defense, but of course it's a defense that loses a piece. Let's see, was there something better? Oh, knight e3 once again. Yeah, I was thinking about this. I had noticed it by this point that knight e3 was forking these two pieces. So now the queen moves. Say it just goes here. Knight takes c4. Back up, sorry about that. Knight takes c4. Oh, that's really nice. So the knight here is guarding this square. So now the king can't come out on any of these squares, and he's just trapped on the back rank. So rook to d1, queen takes a5, queen takes a5, rook takes a5, and now there's a threat of doubling the rooks here. So rook d3, to eliminate the pawn, rook fa8, takes there, and then check here, king here, and winning the other rook. So you're just a whole rook up, and a bishop, a rook and a bishop up. So overwhelming material advantage. So it was possible to play knight e3 here. Okay, I didn't know what was best there, but I just grabbed the material. Queen takes a5, and after the exchange, I'm still winning. It's just a little bit slower. And forcing this pin was, yeah, pretty strong. He probably should have just kept running with the king here. But let's see, after king d2, I have knight takes e5. Yeah, that was my plan anyway. Chase the king to the d file and then grab the pawn on e5 because of this pin here. So he's in big trouble no matter what. So the way the game went, I was able to grab the d pawn here with the rook, and then after grabbing the e pawn, he resigned. And although there's not a mate in 5 or anything here, it's just overwhelming material advantage. I have the knight coming into d3 here with the check, and I'll win something. Either I'll win the knight here, or I'll win the rook with a discovered attack, something like that. So pretty interesting game. Hope you guys enjoyed that one, and I'll see you again later. Bye.